Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. This is a live show, so leave your comments throughout on whatever platform you are watching on, and we will read them throughout, no doubt about it. It is Sunday FUNDAY today, and we're playing a game of wrestling, heaven, hell, and purgatory. What exactly is that? Well, if you haven't watched before, then I will explain the rules in just a moment. But before we do, let me introduce the contestants for today's show, and let's kick things off with Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
What's up, Ben? I'm stoked. I had a fun morning. We had Sunday morning night spotlight. It was awesome. If you haven't checked it out, go tune into that one. We had a blast on that show, as we always do. And you know I love Heaven, Hell, Purgatory. You know I love this game. Feel like I'm the best to ever do it thus far, based on history. Statistically speaking, I do feel like this is my forte. So I'm excited to get after it today. And I'm ready to go.
Over on Instagram, outsideworld_1999 spams is asking if this is pre-recorded. No, it's not. We are live. So we can see your comments. Earlier on today, Sunday Night Spotlight, well, that was meant to be pre-recorded, and I was eating my dinner. My phone was on my table. I had a notification. Oh, Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast is live right now. Oh, nice. Hang on a second. Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast is live right now. I was in shock. But it's all good. They accidentally went live, but it was a hell of a fun show. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you guys do. But I've literally never jumped out of a chair into this chair so fast in my life to fix that earlier on. But also joining us today as a contestant is somebody else who was on that show, and that is Shad. How are you, Shad?
It is I, Mr. Tuesday, coming here on a Sunday doing double duty, and I'm here for Sunday FUNDAY to proclaim a new title. Obviously, y'all know this gold belt shows that I'm the GOAT at everything in life. But I haven't won a Heaven and Hell game, so tonight I will mark that. Clark!
Ooh.
Gun it for your head, buddy.
Fighting
and the other
talk.
person that's on here, too. But Clark, you talking crazy. Gun it for your head.
Also joining us, that other person is the always controversial Ignacio. How are you doing today, Ignacio?
Pretty good. Taking a little tour of Texas here. It's my third city in a month, I think. But I'm going to be here for a little while working, so I'm going to be more available on Sundays. So, Shad, don't get too comfortable with that title on your shoulder. I'm coming around to steal it, buddy.
Oh, no.
Oh, fighting talk to kick us off
I love competition, man.
Basically, let me explain the rules, right? If you guys haven't seen Wrestling, Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory before, it's very, very simple. You choose one thing which you want to send to Wrestling Heaven, which is just a good thing, one thing you want to send to Wrestling Hell, a bad thing, and one thing you want to send to Wrestling Purgatory, which basically means you think it can be improved. This time, there's a little bit of a spin on it, and the spin is it has to be AEW related. All the topics have to be AEW related. Ignacio, I know it might be a bit hard for you to send something AEW related to Heaven, but you're going to have to try and argue that. But Clark, you're going to have to try and argue it first. What are you wanting to send to Wrestling Heaven?
I am sending excellent weekly bell-to-bell wrestling from a challenger brand to Wrestling Heaven. We have, for the first time in a long time, a brand that can compete financially, and we get great wrestlers on national television in the U.S., internationally broadcasts across the globe every week. Whether they're as good as the WWE or not doesn't matter. This is what wrestling needed. It's jobs for wrestlers that may be lower card wrestlers in WWE if AEW doesn't exist. It's jobs for wrestlers that get over on the indies and don't quite have what WWE thinks it takes, but it's an opportunity to show it on television. I'm sending to Wrestling Heaven the idea of the fact that we have a Pepsi to Coke for the first time since WCW. And not only do we have a Pepsi to Coke, we've got a team that's passionate about it. Ted Turner never cared about professional wrestling. Tony Khan does. Say what you will, positive or negative about him. He cares about wrestling. He can financially compete, and it gives us a shot. We need this to continue the train for the future of pro wrestling, and that's what I'm sending to Wrestling Heaven.
A great shout indeed. I mean, you are right. For many years, WWE was, the only shop in town, especially when it comes to, major shops, right? And now they've got competition, which means everybody gets paid more. We get more wrestling as fans. Whether there's a demand for that at times is, a debate for a separate day. But the fact of the matter is these wrestlers get paid more. It means more jobs. And it just means more, I guess, variety in the product too. So I love what you were saying there. We have Bobby Petito in the chat. Hello, Bobby. I hope you're having a great day. But Shad, I want to know what you want to send to Wrestling Heaven.
So what I am picking is a more improvement, something that may have been in purgatory before, but I think is starting to become the strong suit on weekly television and some of the most compelling storylines in general. The recent booking of the AEW women's division. I say that to say this. You look at a wrestler like Toni Storm, she may have the only, and I say only, storyline with a Forbidden Door opponent that is a good storyline that has to deal with a Forbidden Door opponent and that has one that has struck a lot of interest of viewers going into the pay-per-view. You also coincide that it being tied with a young star like Mariah May, who from the beginning when we signed her, a lot of people may have not known who she was. She is one of the more popular women superstars on the division and popular superstars in general. On the other band, you have Willow Nightingale just absolutely running shop, having an incredible title reign prior to it, but her and Chris Statlander having a very, very personal good storyline amongst each other, one that does not even have to tie with the belt. Prior to AEW, we didn't get multiple women storylines. We honestly only really got one. And the fact that one storyline that doesn't tie to a belt being in it is pretty great. We also got to give love to the CEO, Mercedes Moné. She's doing great stuff. She's bringing a new light to the AEW women's division as the TBS champion. And she's having a pretty, intriguing feud with a Stephanie Vaquer going into the Forbidden Door as well, which is great. That's 3 women's storylines going in right now. That's awesome to see. We can't always forget the Women's Owen Cup happening. A lot of great matches being built on there. We got to see Willow versus Nyla just happen. You got, Willow versus Serena Deeb just happened. Serena Deeb last night in Collision challenging someone for next week in an open challenge. There's another woman who's being showcased. I feel like Tony Khan has heard the rumblings that a lot of people online had about the women's division, and he's starting to put more of a foot effort, booking it more, and making it become more stronger. I think AEW has a very, very deep roster of women superstars that can progressively just get more TV time as we go upon week upon week upon week. It's not an AEW problem. That's a problem within all scales of professional wrestling, except for NXT, which is the best wrestling show of all time. But you gotta love what we're going with there. I think we got a good band of stars that are gonna tip the scale, and I'm loving what they're doing right now. So the recent booking of the women's division, they're going to the pearly gates.
You are right. There's been huge improvements with the women's division booking lately. There is still one major flaw though, and you mentioned across the entire industry, women aren't being given enough time. But still, apart from 2 weeks in the last year, AEW Dynamite has featured the least amount of time for women's wrestling and just women's overall airtime out of all the major shows.
Yeah, but we look at this past Dynamite. We had a very intriguing contract signing that had to deal with the match that's being built for Forbidden Door with Mina Shirakawa, Mariah May, and Toni Storm. We're progressing that storyline. That's happening. You also tie the knots with we got Saraya added on it. Harley Cameron added to it. Anna Jay. That's 6 women that got TV time that night. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Chris Statlander. Nyla Rose had a match. Those are 2 other women. We talk about Rampage also. We had Willow, Serena Deeb. You know, like they're starting to put more women on the airtime, and I don't disagree. It should be more airtime for women in general, but I gotta tip my hat off to them for at least, putting the effort in for it more. Where we are now to where we were a few years ago, where we would get Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, like once in a blue moon type of match, and that was really the only women's feud happening. To where we are now, I think they've made a vast amount of majority on it.
You are right. They are showcasing more stars. There's not necessarily, I know this week they did a bit more, but overall, over the last couple of months, I don't think they're necessarily showcasing more women on Dynamite on a weekly basis. But what they are doing is, let's say in a 6-week period, for example, they are showcasing more women overall than they did before. And like you said, that means now there's quite a lot of, interest in that women's division. So I do agree. They certainly are, improving it. But Ignacio, I want to find out what you want to send to Wrestling Heaven.
Well, Ben, I can probably spend a whole episode rebutting the 2 fine gentlemen just commented on AEW right now. But this isn't that type of show. Maybe we can take it to the table one day. So I'm going to pick the very first Double or Nothing, the match between Dustin and Cody, because I don't think that wasn't necessarily peak AEW. I'll comment about that in a minute, but it definitely was the strongest way to kick off the promotion. And I think that match, it was just so easy. It had a built-in story already. They didn't need much build-up. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dustin had just been released from WWE maybe a couple of weeks, 3 weeks before even the event occurred, or a week. I can't remember. Maybe one of you guys can refresh my memory on that. But he hadn't been out of WWE for long, and then he comes in and has that amazing match with Cody. In my opinion, there has been nothing better since that match. That's my favorite AEW match of all time. One of my favorite matches of all time. The story they told was better than anything that they've ever done. And it hasn't been all downhill from there. I mean, I haven't been sour on AEW the whole time, just since about late 2021. But it was just an amazing start to a promotion. I believe it was Jon Moxley that debuted in that event as well. But the match itself between Cody and Dustin is like anything that I've ever seen on both WWE and AEW. The only other thing I can think of is Cody's WrestleMania win, because it was a real story told before our eyes. It was a real story that was marketed and promoted, and was very easy for them to market and promote because it was already built in.
I agree. I thought AEW did a great job with Cody's Mania win.
Absolutely, yes. But they just haven't been able to capitalize on a story like that since, and it shows in their ratings. But I mean, it was an amazing match, so much emotion. Dusty watching from the heavens. I know he had to be very, very proud, and it was an amazing match. The blood fest that ensued, the sibling rivalry, such an easy story to tell, and it's hard not to believe that in real life there wasn't a sibling rivalry between Dustin and Cody, and they played it out on air at that first pay-per-view, and it's a tremendous match. If you haven't seen it yet, I encourage any viewers or any fans of the Daily or Wrestling Republic to go watch it. It's just a sight to see. I'm picking them to go to heaven.
I mean, heading into that initial AEW pay-per-view, a lot of people thought that, they were saying they're the sports-like product, that they were going to be really focused on the in-ring, action itself, right? Tons of flips, all this stuff. But in that match, it kind of stood out from everything else on that show because everything they did it felt like it had a meaning behind it. The story really was great. And for the longest time, right, up until, to be honest with you, probably the last few years, it was my favorite AEW match. And it was one of the first matches, to happen just because every time you watched it, it got a little bit better. And the story they told, the emotion that they showed, it was exceptional. But I do want to head to the comments really quickly because Soul would send John Moxley standing up and putting the company on his back to Wrestling Heaven. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest here, Soul, if you were on this show, you're not on the show today, but if you were, that could well have won. It really could have.
Whoa.
I never liked that
Give
Soul guy.
him too much credit.
Never liked that Soul guy.
John Moxley
Soul's a
really
great
has
guy,
stood up for
Soul
that
is an
company.
AEW plant.
Well, but he's turned on them now. People are saying WWE have paid him off.
Doesn't like him anymore.
Calf KK is saying getting Will Ospreay, another great shout, while Bobby Petito is saying giving young wrestlers more TV time. Links into Clark's point and absolutely correct. But overall, to summarize, Clark wants to, send in the fact that they're a competitor brand. WWE finally has competition once again to Wrestling Heaven. Shad wants to send the AEW Women's Division, and Ignacio wants to send Dustin versus Cody. Shad, I love your point. They are making big strides in the AEW Women's Division lately. But the fact is, they're still giving, not enough time to it. And compared to most shows, they're still not giving as much time either. So unfortunately, that is not going there. Then between Clark and Ignacio, it is getting a little tough. It truly is. But, it's difficult. But, let's be real about it. If it wasn't for AEW, would WWE be as hot as it is right now? I don't know. The fact that there was the introduction of a competitor brand really has just, pushed the industry, the professional wrestling industry, into a boom period and into a better place. Even that, maybe at times it has been at the expense of AEW, it has still technically been because of AEW. So, Clark, I am sending AEW being a competitor brand to Wrestling Heaven. I'm using my tripod as the lever because I don't have anything else to use today. But Clark, you are 1-0 up, but Ignacio, I'm going to go straight back to you because I want to find out what you want to send to Wrestling Hell.
I'm gonna say Tony Khan's booking. It's a bad show and it's terrible right now. I would say, and I know I'll get arguments from everybody on the show, but I think the matches in WWE are just as good, if not better, because they tell better stories than AEW. And everybody wants to say the bell-to-bell action is better and all that stuff. It's a lot of the matches they don't have stories behind them. I believe they don't know how to tell good stories in the ring. We got a lot of great athletes in AEW, but I believe the storytelling is just what's bringing down the product, or the lack of storytelling. And I think Tony Khan, with all his money that he has available to him, with all the personalities, the veterans that he has in the company, I understand Arn Anderson's not there anymore, but he had Arn Anderson. He had Tully Blanchard. He had Jake Roberts, or has Jake Roberts.
Regal, Mark Henry.
On and on. Conan has mentioned before on his platform that he'd love to book in the U.S. Why not hire him to AEW? Because Tony thinks he knows wrestling and he knows what's good, and he doesn't. The ratings are reflecting on what's going on with the booking. They're plummeting. They're not good. The show's not good. And you can debate on whether the matches are good or just as good as what's being aired on WWE. I don't think hiring all these people like Mercedes Moné and Will Ospreay on Okada, I don't think they're doing very well for the company. I think Okada's in the ring, definitely on his promos, is lackluster. I think his matches are lackluster. I think he took the money and just ran to AEW and just figured, like, I can take a seat back and I don't have to work as hard as I worked in Japan because I signed my contract and that's it. And I'm getting my money. it's not good. I think this Tony Khan needs to pass the book over. And I've said this before on the daily, is that I don't want AEW to fail, but I want Tony Khan to fail, because I want somebody to come over, take over the company and do good with it and make them a real competitor to WWE. Because in no shape or form, in storyline or in the ring, they are not a competitor to WWE. No, in no way, shape, or form. They're losing to NXT right now in the ratings. It's not good. Tony Khan's booking needs to go out the window, and I would send his booking straight to hell.
Wow, indeed. Something really interesting has just happened though, Ignacio, right? Because Soul has just commented, TK buying Ring of Honor and spreading creative and focus too thin. You and Soul, right, in some way, not fully, but in some way, have just agreed on something. That is absolutely crazy indeed. I massively disagree with you on the Okada thing. He's changed his character up so much to try and work in AEW, try and work in American wrestling, right? He's getting a lot of praise for what he's doing. I don't agree there, but I do agree TK is doing too much, right? He is doing too much. I say it all the time. Very interesting point there, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more in just a moment. But before we do, Clark, I want to bring you in because I want to ask you, what do you want to send to wrestling hell?
I want to send so many things when it comes to this to wrestling hell, but the first one I want to send is the entire tag team division to wrestling hell. We on paper had so many opportunities for marquee printed on a poster matchups over the years with AEW. A lot of this company was built on the back of how great this tag division was at one time. I mean, it's a laundry list of names. And the fact that that division right this second feels shallow is just disgusting to me. It's brutal. We've lost great teams. And what's more frustrating to me is I'm a Road Warriors guy. I'm from Chicago. Everyone knows that. I'm a Road Warriors guy. And I think that's one of the most overlooked, underrated, great acts in the history of professional wrestling is the Road Warriors. You could put the Road Warriors in the main event any weekend you wanted, and that building was hot for them. There's a reason you call it a Road Warriors pop. Now, I don't understand why we haven't been able to figure that out with tag team wrestling. And this division was deep as could be with the Young Bucks. You've got FTR. You've got Proud and Powerful. You've got Jurassic Express. Private Party in the early stages, even the Hardys at a time. Sting and Darby. Like the amount of Hall of Fame type talent in this tag division over a 4-year stretch, and to not execute on that and not elevate it and not make it bigger than what it has been, I will never understand. So I am sending, in a weird way, the execution of the tag team division's booking straight to wrestling hell.
When AEW first started, the Young Bucks straight away said AEW is going to be the company where tag team wrestling matters. And you are right. For about the first 12 months, maybe even 18 months, they did that. They did. But since, well, it's gone down the drain, and now it feels like they barely
And we
care
lost the
about
best
it.
friends. How are we supposed to give the people what we want?
I mean, that's the thing about it, though, right? Them splitting up was more interesting than anything the best friends had been involved with the entire time. Because every time they just felt like jobbers.
Because the best friend, that street fight with Proud and Powerful, which both teams have now split up.
That's true. That's
it's
true.
One
That's
of the
true.
best matches of the pandemic era.
I'll take that back. That is true.
The best tag team match with the cars and everything. That one is off the absolute charts. Also, Sue. Don't forget all of that stuff. I mean,
Sue.
And the van, it's just...
Sue is the highlight of the tag team division. You know it's in a bad place.
No, it's in a good... That's when it was in the best place, was when Sue was the highlight.
She's not in the tag team, and she's the highlight.
It wasn't even for the titles. It mattered. It was a tag team rivalry separate from the titles. That mattered.
You are right.
We haven't seen that in 2.5 years.
Exactly.
We haven't seen it in 2.5 years. Let's have a tag team rivalry that actually matters, that doesn't need the belts in any company, not just AEW when it comes to that.
No,
like,
it is
please, because
true.
I love tag wrestling. The psychology of it, it's an entirely different. It's a pivot presentation wise. I love tag team wrestling. I truly do, especially like true tag team wrestling, like really good, well booked teams that use the rules, don't use the rules to their advantage. You have the babyface, the heel. What it allows for in-ring storytelling, it's one of my favorites. And also, everybody wants to have their best buddy by their side, so it's perfect from a storytelling perspective in that sense. And to not have it feel right in any company, let alone this is not just AEW. I'm begging WWE. Build tag division.
No, it's the same
Please.
there. And it's been the same in WWE for quite some time, but that is the thing, right? Like I said, first 18 months, AEW delivered on that promise of making tag team division wrestling matter. And since then, they've given up on it. And that's an interesting conversation for another day for sure. But up last, we have Shad. Shad, I want to hear what you want to send to wrestling hell.
I want to send anything that is not AEW Dynamite under the AEW programming umbrella to hell. That's Ring of Honor, most importantly. That's Friday Night Rampage, and that's AEW Saturday Night Collision. The reason I say that, if you want to kind of follow through and see what's going on in AEW, all you need to do is watch Dynamite. I think the booking for ROH has been abysmal in regards to, I think he really just bought it for it to be a vanity project, but he had no sense of direction. The importance of it is these pay-per-views that come up on special weekends, and that's about it. If you watch the weekly programming, you are not missing anything at all. It has literally become AEW Dark Elevation on the paywall, and that's sad because Ring of Honor has so much of a lineage. It is so important as a wrestling program. It was a great alternative in the early 2000s, the mid 2010 era, and we are so far away from that. People like to discredit Jonathan Gresham of how his relationship with Tony Khan is and how he viewed the direction of ROH. But he's not wrong. It's something far away from that. We're seeing young superstars who, don't have any ties to ROH. We have AEW superstars like the Bullet Club Gold, Kyle Fletcher being champions, and you wouldn't even know that. What's the difference between the Ring of Honor TV title champion than Andrade being the WWE Speed champion? Like, it's meant more people probably watching the Twitter speed matches than they're watching the ROH show. That's got to go to hell. Rampage, same thing. It's more or less a dark matches happening. They're fun when you see them live, but there's not a lot of importance to it. They don't bring a lot to the programming, and you can catch anything that's somewhat of importance on the YouTube page. That doesn't draw a lot of views to people, and I know numbers don't matter that much to people, whatever it may be, but there's not direction to that. And last but not least, Collision, the most unimportant wrestling show out of all major wrestling shows on the week. Nothing significant happens on Collision. We talked about it on Throwback Thursday. The first few months of when Collision started, the identity that was created when they did have CM Punk to it and whatnot was great. We are so far away with it. I watched it last night. I fell asleep at 9 o'clock. I couldn't get through the whole hour. It was boring.
Ooh.
There's nothing of importance to it. The only thing I got away from that is Okada hit a cool clothesline on a dude where his mask came off, and Private Party lost to a tag team I did not like in the Learning Tree. But it is what it is. I feel like it doesn't add any value to it. I would throw it all away, and I would construct something new where we can have two shows, it may be, that can garner the talent to get significant TV time, and that'd be a good way to progress television, because I think Dynamite is a very strong show. It's probably my second favorite show to watch on a week because there is a lot happening on there, but everything else, it doesn't have any importance. So that's what I'm sending to hell.
Wow, indeed. I mean, I don't totally disagree with you there. In fact, in a lot of ways, I do agree with you, because I said it the other day, right? The fact they've got so many shows and Tony Khan is booking them all, right, to Ignacio's point, it kind of means that it's too much wrestling to keep up with, and it gets too confusing, and a lot of it just doesn't feel important. We have Ran_Magic on Instagram agreeing with you, Shad, and in the comments we have Bobby Petito saying Tony Khan booking Ring of Honor, someone else should be doing it. I mean, it is true.
It's not. The thing is this: we're far away from booking at this point. It's muddied so much where it just needs to be sent off. Like I don't think it's a booking problem. I think it's an identity problem. You can't. ROH is a whole separate identity. You need to, if you're gonna do it, you got to make it its own complete separate show. You need to have champions that are only gonna wrestle on that. And you may need to open it for people to see. You got to pay to see it, and it's not producing nothing that I'm going to pay my hard-earned money to want to watch.
Did you know, right, in the history of AEW, there have been 3 key moments where the Dynamite ratings have significantly dropped and stayed on that trend. The first one was Brawl Out. We all know about it. The second one, and this is the really interesting one, which has had a huge effect, which not many people are talking about, is the introduction of AEW Collision. From the week Collision was introduced, it massively decreased. And then it did decrease again when Punk left again, right? But, I mean, ultimately, Collision being, the introduction of Collision being as bad of a factor as CM Punk leaving does suggest that, hey, maybe that's not a good idea at all. So overall, Ignacio, I agree. At times, Tony Khan's booking is just not very good. He's trying to do too much, and that a lot of time means it just falls on its face. But at the same time, he's also done a lot of good too. So I'm not gonna put his booking on the hole in wrestling hell. I'm not gonna do it. Clark, your point, tag team division, the booking, the handling of the tag team division, another really, really great point. But the fact of the matter is AEW Dynamite was averaging between 1.1 to 1.2 million views, and it is now averaging 500k. And I do believe the introduction of other shows and the fact that Tony Khan has to spread himself between those shows is a huge, huge factor in that. So, Shad, I am sending anything not AEW Dynamite to wrestling hell. I mean, I think Rampage might be a little hard done by there, but certainly Collision and ROH. But now, we have something which I want to talk about, which I believe just belongs in heaven, full stop, and that is Next Level. Now, if you guys don't know what Next Level is, let me quickly talk to you about it. Next Level have put all our social media links all in one place, all our social media platforms, all our content, all in one place, and that one place is nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic to see all our content across all platforms, linked all in one place. Plus, they have an app. They have an app with a thriving wrestling community. Check it out. It's nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic to use our link. But now it's time to talk about Wrestling Purgatory. Once again, Wrestling Purgatory is where you want to send something for it to be improved. And we are going to start things off this time with you, Shad. What do you want to send to Wrestling Purgatory?
What I want to send to Wrestling Purgatory could be something that can vitably be fixed by next pay-per-view if given the right booking decision. And that is going to be the AEW championship reign of one Swerve Strickland. Now, y'all know me. I have been very, very, very vocal about the presentation of him as a champion. I feel like it's been a lot different than prior champions. I feel like they haven't allowed Swerve an opportunity to feel like a champion. He's fighting the belt on weekly television like he is a mid-card title holder. He's been in matches that haven't showcased the cards while he's had his title reign, and a lot of it is when, like I said on the show, it's like a kindergartner with a crown in the house. The writing is on the wall for his title to be possibly out of his hands with one Will Bruv spray. But I think we could put him in purgatory after this Wednesday. With everything in the character development that I saw with Swerve at Dynamite, I think we are going to do some course correction. I feel like if you go back to the roots of what made Swerve Strickland beloved by the fans. And that's not the Prince Nana dancing and all that. That's the sinister, devious heel that is going to one up you by playing mind games with you. That is a gentleman that is going to attack you by any means necessary to maintain what he has. That is a man that will take a personal shot at your children, but he will also break into your house and look your little baby in its crib. That's what we need. We need Swerve to get back into that bag. I know the fans love him and that's cool, but that doesn't make him a babyface. We are in a completely different era of professional wrestling where the bad guys and the heels get a lot of love. A lot of people like MJF because he's a little rough on the edges, because he's a, I can't use curse words, but he's one of that to the fans and whatnot, and they like that. Same with Roman Reigns as a tribal chief. People like that. He's a cocky dude that's better than everyone. People like throwing their ones up and telling them to acknowledge him. Let's get Swerve back in a little bit more of a heel bag. Let's find heel tactics for him to beat Ospreay in June, and let's give him a title reign that is going to be well booked. I feel like we can put this in purgatory because we can course correct the early actions of it, and we can have a guy who has the possibility, still very new into a title reign, to be one of the better AEW champions in history. So for that, I'm sending Swerve to purgatory in this title reign.
That is a great shout indeed. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism about Swerve's booking, and it's true. He's not felt like a world champion. And the fact that he's not felt like a world champion has got nothing to do with Swerve. It's been the position that he's been booked in. So a great shout there, Shad. But Ignacio, I'm going to throw it to you next. What do you want to send AEW related to Wrestling Purgatory?
I don't know. Shad stole mine. So, yeah. I was gonna just to add to that real quick is that look at the way TNA presents their champion. You know what I mean? I've been watching a little bit more TNA lately because they have that relationship with NXT now. So I'm gonna be watching a little bit more TNA. But look at the way they present Moose. But I'm gonna pick somebody else that I think deserves better booking, and that's Powerhouse Hobbs, because he has the makings of a superstar. And I don't think when he started in AEW, I had seen anybody improve so much within a year than Powerhouse Hobbs, because he came from pretty much nothing, the indies. He's a homegrown AEW talent, as they like to say. And it seemed like he came out with some nice vignettes that they made for him at one point. That whole Hobbs, the Book of Hobbs presentation, I really liked that. And all of a sudden it went cold. They put him in this, and WWE does this sometimes too, where they put him in kind of like a trios feud with Wardlow and Joe when for the TNT title. And I don't like when you try to fit three people into a feud like that. You can only put it off with certain talent, but I don't think that worked well, and it didn't really work very well in his favor. I just think Hobbs has everything, is the makings of a superstar, like somebody that can main event WrestleMania in a few years. And he's just not on TV that much. He was improving on his promos. He's improving on his wrestling and his psychology and the way a big man should wrestle. And he's a great athlete. And they put him, just like every other talent they have there, they just put him in dead end programs and don't present him very well. And they put him, tried to put him in different factions. And it's simple. Let him be a monster. Put a mouthpiece on him. If you don't have that much confidence in his promo skills yet, put a good mouthpiece on him. Let him be a monster. And let him do his thing like he was before. I mean, he just showed so much vast improvement from when he started. And like I said, just like with half the other talent in AEW, he just went cold. And I think he's more talented than the above average talent that's there as far as newcomers. I think he has just as much talent as Ricky Starks to be a superstar, but he's just not presented that way. With the amount of time he's been there, there's no reason why Powerhouse Hobbs should not be in the main event picture right now. Main event in a pay-per-view with Swerve Strickland. And, I think if anything's been in wrestling, Purgatory needs improvement, it should be the booking of Powerhouse Hobbs.
That is a great shout, because he was one of those people who, as soon as you saw him on AEW TV, you were like, this guy could be a homegrown star. He could be the face of this brand. And I remember when Collision started, people were saying, Collision's going to be one of the top few faces. Not Collision. Hobbs is going to be one of the top faces of Collision. And that never happened. We've not seen anything from him. And it sucked, because you're right. He's so talented.
Because I think some of the people that were pushing for him aren't there they're not there in the promotion anymore, like Punk and Cody, that I think were really pushing for him. And the same thing for Ricky Starks. So it's just a shame, because if you want your business to make money, you want to put on the best show as possible. And Powerhouse Hobbs is a great talent, so why not put your best talent on the show? And it's frustrating. I'm pretty sure he's frustrated.
He looks like a star. He's got the aura of a star, so why aren't they booking him like a star? I do agree, Ignacio. A great shout indeed. Soul wants to send AEW doing international shows. He hopes to see them capitalize on their international love and do more TV tapings and pay-per-views outside of America to gain more and allow a break for American audiences. A great shout. I think maybe they're worried about the demand. But then again, they're not drawing large audiences in the US right now either, are they? Calf KSK is saying AEW Wembley, it was a great pay-per-view, but it was ruined by post-pay-per-view events. Well, they've got a chance. They've got a chance to fix it this year, so let's hope they do. But two very, very good shouts there. But Clark, last but not least, what do you want to send to Wrestling Purgatory?
I want to send factions in AEW to Wrestling Purgatory, and I've loved a lot of the faction work, and that's why it's Purgatory wise, right? Like, I had some fun with some of these factions. The Elite, iconic. There's some things you can't pay off with no more Cody Rhodes when it comes to the Elite. Let's remember he was part of that group at one point. Kenny Omega also being, in get well soon Kenny for sure, right? But that's why it's Purgatory, because there's been some really good. The Inner Circle, did it elevate the stars like we hoped it would? No. Did it provide entertainment? Yes. Right? MJF's group that he brought out against them, as fun as could be. We've seen a lot of factions. The Blackpool Combat Club is one that I want to focus on really quickly when it comes to this, because overall, I think it's awesome. I like every competitor in that group, and so I'm cool with that. But the basis of it being William Regal and him being over a year removed from it, and they're still in the Blackpool Combat Club, doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me. I like the group. I'd like another explanation. Give us more story when it comes to that, faction-wise, and that's where I'm torn, because I like the idea that we've got a group of shoot fighters, basically, is what they're presenting themselves as, or violent guys, but it just, can we just tighten the screws a little bit on the Elite? Even Okada has been a standout since he's been signed, but just tighten the screws a little on the whole Elite story. Tighten the screws a little on the Blackpool Combat Club. This new Jericho thing, same sentiment, right? And so that's why I feel like the factions and all of that in AEW fit Purgatory the best. They were outshined by the Bloodline for sure. As big as the Elite were out of the gates, the Bloodline on the other end outshined the Elite. They did.
They did.
And maybe not necessarily should have in hindsight, the more that you think about it. So that's why I'm sending the factions to Purgatory, because I don't dislike them, but I don't love them either. They're the most medium thing in AEW right now.
I'm going to be honest, Clark. I think that is a great shout indeed. I think all of you guys have made phenomenal shouts. Swerve's booking certainly could be in there, but I do think the last couple of weeks it is starting to improve. Hobbs booking, well, it has been dreadful, especially when there was so much promise, and AEW factions, Clark, have been very hit or miss. You are right. But Powerhouse Hobbs booking, I can't get over it. Ignacio, Powerhouse Hobbs booking is going to Wrestling Purgatory.
I won one.
which means it's now
Overtime?
a tie. It's now a tie, and we're going to overtime. In fact, we're going back to wrestling hell. We have 2 minutes left of the show.
Literally sudden death.
Each of you are going to have 20 seconds to pitch me something which should go to wrestling hell, right? Anything you want, as long as it's AEW related still. It has to be AEW related. Wrestling hell. You have 20 seconds, and I will cut you off at 20 seconds. Clark, we're going to start with you. What do you want to send to wrestling hell?
I don't even need 20 seconds. Poor refereeing.
Oh, wow. I didn't even have time to mute and unmute my mic fast enough. Poor refereeing. Okay. What about you, Ignacio?
The Young Bucks. They've been nothing but detrimental to tag team wrestling and the wrestling business in general. The kings of the leg slapping. They've done nothing more to hurt the wrestling business overall than any other faction, tag team, one personality, one promoter, than anything. They set the wrestling business back, tag team wrestling in general. They set it back about 30 years.
Wow! They've set it back 30 years. Shad, last but not least, what are you going to send there?
Multiple titles on AEW television. I feel like they water down the importance of it. I feel like it's lazy booking when you have all these TV titles because you just keep wrestlers as only TV wrestlers, nothing more to it. There's no benefit or boost to it. So multiple belts. Let's consolidate that.
Just give it to him. That's bogus. He just plays to the moderator. His favorite thing.
Clark, you could have, you had 20 seconds. You didn't take it. Ignacio, I think that's been a little harsh to the Young Bucks. But Shad, it is your first time on this show. And it is also your first win because I am sending too many championships to wrestling hell. Thank you guys so much for watching us. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed playing. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Clark. And thank you to today's winner, Shad, the Tuesday Night Delight on a Sunday. We will see you guys tomorrow for Mailbag Monday. Peace.